and welcome to River Walks. This is the Medina River on the Isle of Wight. Today I'm walking part of the circular estuary walk. The Medina runs from its source at St Catherine's Down on the south of the island to the river mouth at Cowes, where it flows into the Solent. One of only 3 rivers on the island, it was given the Saxon name Medine, or Middle River. I'm starting my journey on the eastern bank at the Folly Inn near Whippingham. Legend has it that the Folly originated from a French barge that sold illegal liquor here in the 1700s. The barge eventually sank, but the pub remains a favourite with sailors. I'm going to head for Newport, then follow the old railway line down the western bank to Cowes. The circular estuary walk is about 9 miles long and at a brisk pace should take about 4 hours. That's if you don't stop to see the sights along the way. This could take longer than I thought. Today is the start of the annual cycling festival here on the Isle of Wight, and I have a feeling it's going to be a little bit different. I'm not sure if it's cycling or sailing. On the countdown, 3, 2, 1, go! The Cycling Festival celebrates biking on the island and tries to encourage all forms of green transport. It's all a bit mad. For the past couple of years, Sink or Swim has been a feature of the event. Competitors are challenged to pedal across the river on bikes, or boat bikes that is. This year's winner was Ken Renshaw, otherwise known as Uncle Albert, who beat the brave youngsters by a whisker. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Now, I don't believe your name's really Uncle Albert, is it?
No, I've been called a lot of other things as well. Father Christmas, Captain Birdseye. But you can call me what you like, Charlie.
Now, tell me about the bike. Did you build it?
Yeah, with some help, yeah.
So what made you want to do this then?
Well, I've watched it the last 2 years and I thought, well, what a wonderful thing. It's a proper eccentric English pastime, like the Birdman of Bognor. And I thought I would like to support the event. I'd like to see the event grow.
Yeah, and you've won it now.
Well, yes.
So are you going to be in it next year?
Oh yes, we've got another design on the drawing board already. Yeah.
Oh, have you?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Did you think you were going to sink at any point?
No. It's packed full of polystyrene.
Oh.
Like the Titanic, it's unsinkable.
Oh, okay. Well, congratulations. Thank you very much. Time for me to get a move on, even though some of the competitors haven't made it back yet. Just the other side of Seaclose Park, where the annual Isle of Wight Rock Festival is held, is the old quay of Newport Harbour. There's always lots to see here, and today is no exception. It's a classic car rally, but beautiful as they are, I'm here to see the Classic Boat Museum. Over the past 10 years, volunteers have been rescuing and restoring old boats, and it's now home to over 60 craft. Now, I've been told there's a fascinating bit of World War II history around here, and I'm keen to find out more. Kim Lyle is a volunteer at the museum and a sailing enthusiast. Now, tell me about this wonderful boat.
This is an airborne lifeboat.
An airborne lifeboat. Now, I've never heard of one of those.
Well, it was a rescue vessel during the wartime.
And do they do exactly what it says on the tin? They fly?
Pretty well. No, they do fly, yes, they do.
So how did it work then?
Well, during the war, when there were pilots who were ditching their planes in the sea, they could get into rubber dinghies, but they couldn't get home again. And so this was designed to drop from another aircraft on parachutes.
Wow.
So it did fly.
So it did fly. So it'd literally be stuck up underneath the plane.
Underneath an aeroplane,
and
yes.
then parachuted in to
That's
where
right, yes.
people were stranded.
Near them.
Near them, not on top
Not
of them.
on top
And
of them.
one presumes that the sail wasn't up and...
No, the masts and sails were all packed down inside. It was very beautifully designed, and there were engines on board and oars and food and cigarettes and chocolate, everything that a group of 6 men might need to be able to get themselves home again.
I have to say I might have thought, well, I'll stay here and see if I can build a fishing rod. So who designed the boats?
Well, it was a combination of people, a number of people, but mainly Arthur Fox, who was an island man, and that's the reason that the Classic Boat Museum wanted to restore an airborne lifeboat, because up in Whippingham Churchyard, you may have passed it on your walk up the river, on his tombstone there is the carving of the airborne lifeboat being dropped on parachutes.
And they were built here on the Isle of Wight?
1 or 2, the early prototypes were, but then they were built elsewhere.
And was this boat in this condition when you sort of got it in the museum?
Oh no, this came as a bare hull, and volunteers spent 2 years putting her back into the original condition. One of the nice things is that when the RAF associations heard that we were restoring it, people from all over the country sent us the genuine articles to put back into her, such as the radio and the kites and all the other things that we needed.
That's fabulous.
And that's really what is our reward, is that people get involved in the project as well as us, which is nice.
Well, I'm afraid I can't stay and look round. I've got to go upriver and down the other side yet. So thank you very much, Kim.
Nice to see you.
Bye.
Bye.
Newport is the capital of the Isle of Wight. In the past, it's been the commercial and industrial hub of the island, although these days tourism and leisure play important roles. The riverside area has been renovated, and you can still see some of the old wharves and warehouses. I think it's about time I found out a bit more about the Medina River, and who better to ask? The harbour master. Wayne Pritchard has worked on the river most of his life. Hello, Wayne.
Hello, Charlie. Nice to see you.
Can I catch a lift, mate?
Why not?
How do we get on then?
Follow me.
All right. Oh, that seems all right. Thank you very much. Cool. Right, away we go. Now, Wayne, tell me about the river. What type of river is it?
Well, it's a tidal estuary.
Uh-huh.
It flows in from the Port of Cows about 4.5 miles up the river to the capital town of Newport.
And being a harbour master, what does that entail? Because it seems quite a nice job to me in weather like this.
Well, the thing is, it's changed for me from the time I started. It's now 99% leisure craft up here now. And the main function, I suppose, of my job is to provide moorings, not only for local boat owners, but also for visitors alike.
And Newport's changed quite a lot, hasn't it? Because it was much more commercial.
Oh yes, when I started back here, that was the summer of '62 I started here, and in those days it was unusual to see a yacht this far up the river. It's in Newport, and if one did navigate that far, it was always difficult to find somewhere to tie up, because there was always fleets of commercial barges here, you see. Because in those days, particularly up until about 1970, very, very busy but commercially up here.
And so why has that changed then?
Well, I think the biggest amount of change was brought about by the introduction of the larger car-carrying ferries. It made economic sense to put one lorry with one driver onto a ferry than have a motor barge with a crew of 4 men.
Being a harbour master is a bit of a family trade, isn't it?
Yeah, that goes back on my mother's side of the family more than the father's, and I traced them back here to 1748 with accuracy. My grandfather and his grandfather and so on. And my son here, of course, has been with me 25 years.
That Malcolm that's driving.
That's Malcolm was driving, yeah. So I've certainly seen a lot of changes in that time.
Yeah.
We had steam trains running west bank of the river in those days on the old Cows to Newport line.
Now, remind me, what do you call us people that come over from there?
Well, on a polite day, I think you're referred to as grockles. Of course, they call us corkheads, of course.
Corkheads?
Well, there's something to do with the fact that they seem to think that because we live on the island that we're kept afloat by our heads, because because they must be made of cork. But,
So are there any other nickname for tourists or people that haven't lived here for a long time?
oh yes, Overners is one what springs to mind, and that's quite commonly used, because I always remember my grandmother telling me, and she said, well, I told your mother back in 1931 that she wasn't all that happy because she was marrying an Overner.
An Overner?
An Overner. Well, it wasn't until I got a bit older I sort of realised what the term meant, but I was also dismayed the fact that my father's family had come here in 1798. Yet in 1930, she was still referring to them as Overners.
Although they've been here for
130 years. Yeah, that's a fact. Yeah.
Well, I could talk to Wayne all day, but my next destination is just up ahead. Join me after the break. Welcome back to Riverwalks. Today I'm walking around the Medina estuary on the Isle of Wight, and I've made it to the west bank of the river. The route round from Whippingham on the eastern bank to Cowes is around 9 miles, and I'm about halfway. I've come to the Medina Valley Centre, where they run field courses for kids of all ages, the ideal place to find out about the ecology of the river. The Medina Estuary is a special area of nature conservation, a site of special scientific interest and a special protection area for birdlife, and it's all to do with the mud. Steve Taverner is the centre's environmental science tutor. Hi Steve.
Hello Charlie.
What's going on here then?
Right, what we're doing is trying to find out what is living in the mud here. I've got a group of A-level students from Ireland High Schools here, and we're taking cores of the mud, exploring what's on the surface of the mud in order to find out what lives in it.
So what type of things would they be finding?
A variety of different invertebrates. In particular, there's some worms like ragworms living there, burrowing deep down. Tiny snails called hydrobia, which you find all over the mud in their
Can you
thousands.
see any?
If you look at a stone, here we are, we've got one right by our feet here.
Oh,
you
right.
see all these things that look like tiny little grains.
Aren't they tiny? So what are they doing? Are they useful to anything?
They are very, very low down in a number of food chains. A lot of other estuarine animals will feed on them, particularly the birds. Even some quite large birds will feed almost entirely on these. You get something called a shell duck, for instance, which feeds almost entirely of these. It's got a flat bill which it uses for sort of sieving around in the surface.
I see. Shall we go and have a look, see what they've found?
Yes, let's see what they found.
Oh, squelch, squelch.
Right. Be careful you don't get stuck. It has been known.
Tight-fitting wellies are required.
Yes.
So, what?
Right, so these ladies here have been taking mud samples and sieving them like this.
All right.
And here we can see some of the
So what have we got then? What's
invertebrates
this?
we've got. Here we have something called a ragworm. They get much
Oh,
bigger
look
than
at
that further out. They're predatory worms. They wander around the mud eating anything small enough for them to eat, really. Here's some of the
clam.
mollusks that we mentioned. This is a cockle.
Oh, cockle.
What they do is they stay underneath the mud surface, and when the tide's in, they'll extend a tube called a siphon up into the water, suck in a column of water and filter out any of the food particles which are in it. You've got other small mollusks like this one here, this periwinkle. Here.
And there's all your little baby ones.
Yeah, here a load of these
Tiny, aren't
tiny hydrobia, the snails which are on that brick earlier on.
You can see why people just think it's gravel.
That's right. And here is a very small,
Muddy.
muddy, common shore crab. You only get the one species of crab in the estuary here because they have to tolerate wide changing conditions of salinity in the estuary, and most crabs can't cope with that. Most species are either adapted to fresh water or salt water.
So they're very
anything living in the
specialised.
estuary is a specialist, yes. So you don't find a vast variety of species, but the species which are adapted to live here can live here in vast numbers because there's no competition with anything else.
All right.
So these tiny snails, for instance, the hydrobia, will be in tens of thousands to the square metre.
Well, I haven't got tens of thousands of miles to walk, but I better get going because I've still got a bit of a way to go. But thank you very much,
Well,
everyone.
enjoy the rest of your walk.
I will do. Have a nice muddy afternoon.
Thank you. Bye.
The path here runs all the way from Newport to West Cowes and follows the route of the island's first railway line, built in 1862. Nowadays, it's a tranquil trail for walkers and cyclists. Cowes is most famous for its yacht racing, which started here in the 1800s and continues to this day. Cowes Week in August attracts nearly 10,000 visitors a day. But I'm more interested in what's on the other side of the river, and to get there I need to take a bit of floating history. There's been a chain ferry or floating bridge here for nearly 150 years. The first ferry was steam driven, but this one is diesel powered and dates from 1976. Today it carries 1.5 million pedestrians and cyclists a year, free of charge. You only have to pay if you drive. To celebrate the millennium, it was decorated inside with a cabinet of curiosities. Artwork and poems made by locals and visitors that celebrate this unique link between the two towns. East Cowes has a completely different character to its more famous sister. The huge Columbine boat shed was decorated with a giant Union flag in 1977 to commemorate the Queen's Silver Jubilee. Built by the Saunders Row Company, it housed the largest ever metal flying boat, the Princess. She had 2 decks, 10 engines and weighed 154 tonnes. She could carry 220 passengers, and in 1952 she flew for the first time. She was only supposed to taxi on the water, but the test pilot took off saying that she wanted to fly, so I let her. Only 3 were ever built, and sadly they never went into service. Shipbuilding was also very important in the town. J.S. Wight's shipyard was founded in 1881 and built all kinds of ships for the Royal Navy. In 1966, the British Hovercraft Corporation moved in, and this strange invention became a common sight on the Medina. Today, the blades for giant wind turbines are built beside the river. And my journey around the Medina has almost come full circle, but there's one more place I want to visit. Overlooking the river and with a commanding view of the Solent, it's one of the island's greatest treasures. I could hardly come to East Cowes without visiting Osborne House, home to Queen Victoria and once the centre of the British Empire. Osborne House was bought by Queen Victoria and Prince Albert in 1845. It remained their family home by the sea and an escape from public life for more than 50 years. These days, the house and 2,000 acres of grounds are owned by English Heritage and open to the public. Henry Barton is the manager. Henry, Osborne House was a real home, family home to Victoria and Albert, wasn't it?
It was, yes. When they first came to Osborne, they already had 5 children. They wanted somewhere away from the crowds, away from public life. And Victoria knew about the island. She came here as a child and fell in love with it. And fortunately, this estate here was for sale.
Right, so she'd been to the island before?
Yes, she came here with her mother and actually stayed at the neighbouring estate at Norris Castle.
So she was passionate about it before?
Very much so.
Right. And I mean, the gardens are fantastic, aren't they?
That's right, and they were designed by Albert with the help of his art advisor, Ludwig Gruner from Dresden, set out in the Italianate style.
So once they left London, did they leave just everything behind?
Well, obviously couldn't leave their affairs of state behind, so they followed her, and obviously the empire was probably run for the 3 months of the year that she spent here.
Should we sit down?
Excellent.
I mean, it's just such a fantastic view. Was the house like this when they got here?
No, it was just a small Georgian house that stood on this plot.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. Not big enough for all their household to follow them. So in 1846 they built the pavilion wing for them to live in, and then the rest of the house was completed by 1851.
Has a real Italian sort of feel to it.
It does. Albert went on the Grand Tour and fell in love with everything Italian. So he thought that the view out here to the sea, the calm blue sea, the balmy air, was very, very Italianate to them.
And after Victoria died, was the house sort of preserved in aspect?
Edward VII gifted the house to the nation on the proviso that the majority of it was turned into a convalescent home for officers of the armed forces.
Right, and what happened to the gardens then? I bet they weren't keeping those up together.
They weren't. It was obviously so much easier just to grass them over. And it was English Heritage in about 1998 that decided to actually reinstate the gardens as we see them today.
So that's quite recently then.
It is, yes.
They do look spectacular, I have to say.
Thank you very much.
Well, I would need to walk on a bit further, but I might take a wander around. So thank you very much, Henry.
Thank you.
Bye.
It's been a pleasure.
What an amazing view. That's it from the Isle of Wight. Do join me again on Riverwalks.